Of the house, you see, we would be helping my mother with all the cleaning and the decorating of the house. You know, there was a big kind of a big clean up for Christmas and painting. Do you know what I mean? We hadn't our spring cleaning and spring at all. We had it before Christmas. The house would be painted and papered. I know my poor mother would be staying up and we'd be gone to bed papered in the house. You come down the morning, the new paper up, and Lord, it was great to see it, do you know. But we had to do all that. We had to help out with all that kind of thing. And the next day we would be helping preparing the dinner too. The fellas had a great time. I don't know what they were doing out walking or... But they didn't figure it all in the preparation.
On Christmas week, there would be parties all over the village, and people would come in and go out, you know. That's when the old jar of mulled porter would be messed around with then. They'd always a party, but the women were great for parties all the time anyway. The old Boxley party was famous because, you know, it cost nothing practically, because everybody had potatoes and everybody had butter, and that's all it meant. All you wanted was a good turf fire. And that was a famous one, the Boxley parties. But even though the people were poor, they nearly lived off what they had on the land at the time, because everybody would have chickens and geese and ducks, and they had eggs, and a lot of them would kill their own pigs, like, and they had bacon. But even though, you know, they were living in the country and times were bad, no, that was in the war years even, they still had plenty to eat.
The hearth was the focal point of family life, and in the days before Christmas, this was the place where the Christmas feast was prepared.
You see, you only had a goose that time. There was no such as turkeys when I was growing up. Of course, I still think a goose is the best thing. Oh, the taste of that goose at Christmas, I can still taste it in my mouth. My mother preparing the goose the day before, the plucking of the goose, and we all had a hand in plucking the goose. Now, the big thing we looked forward to at Christmas was Santa Claus coming. Lord, that was mighty. And the excitement, do you know, of Santa coming and having to go to bed early. We hung up our stockings then, because see, there was very little. Santa, he was very poor at that time, and he couldn't afford to give us much, an orange or an apple, and a tuppenny doll. The dinner, of course, would be late, maybe 3 or 4 o'clock in the evening. And we would sit down at an open fire and just play games. Then, of course, sometimes you get a storybook from Santa Claus, and we'd be reading the stories, and oh Lord, they were great altogether.
One of the highlights of the Christmas festivities was the tradition known as the hunting of the Ran. Every Stevens's night, the Ran boys visited local farms, ready to perform a song or a dance and get a penny to bury the Ran.
Come on, boys. Now we have music. Fair ready, fair ready. And a few tunes there now. Help you, boys.
You know the story of the tradition of the Ran boys. This is a story that was handed down to me, that I handed down to my children and others. Stephen was hiding from the Roman soldiers, and he hid under some bushes. The soldiers had passed by, but didn't ran a light on the bush. And when he saw Stephen, he began to flap his wings. The soldiers heard it and doubled back. And poor Stephen was found, dragged out, and as you know, he was stoned to death. Now, the Christians then decided the wren was the villain of the piece. So after that, they hunted the wren. And going from door to door, they would say, the wren, the king of all birds, St. Stephen's Day, he was caught in the furze. Up with the kettle and down with the pan, give us your answer and let us be gone. Some people would say, up with the kettle and down with the pan, give us a penny to bury the wren. I think this thing stemmed from a Christian point of view. But I think that it turned around that people just went around and collected money to have a good night, and they would buy drink and all this kind of thing, you know.
And everybody went out Stevens's night for a drink on Christmas night. Everybody. No matter what they were drinking or not, you went out Stevens's night.
And mind you, even the most henpecked of husbands would have to go out on Stephen's night. And I remember my father talking about one old fella. His wife had him very much henpecked. And she came in from visiting her friends. She probably had a few drinks on her. And she saw her husband sitting down very lonesome with the fire. And she said, look what she said, Jack, she said, it's a shame for you. She said, you should be above in the pub, she said, along with the rest of them. Now, Maggie, he says, how can I go up? He says, you know, he says, I have nothing to go up with. So, well, she says, you won't be like that. She said, I'll give you something. So, now, drink Guinness that there was on a 2 pence a pint, which is less than a penny now, 2 old pennies a pint. So she went back in the room and she brought down a tenner, 6 pence, and she gave it to him. He took it and he thanked her. And as he was going out the door, she said, now look at Jack, she says, don't make a beast of yourself. And you might think that was a cod, but the thing about it was that if you got inside the door at all on Stephen's night, and if you are a good talker, you could get drunk, provided that just the price is the first thing. Because these fellows are coming home from England and they still drinks at the house, and the publicans still drinks at the house, you see. So you could, if you could lift the latch at all, as I said, it was sound. Christmas was a good bit like Sheila No. It was removed from reality. If you can take, you know what I mean now. It was completely removed from reality altogether. It was Christmas time. Everything went.
You know how practically every Christmas you threaten to cook something different for the Christmas dinner, like goose or duck. Yes, when the time comes, it's very hard to break this tradition, and most of us go out and order the turkey, knowing that Christmas wouldn't be the same without it. And while you can eat turkey practically every day of the year, many farmers specialise in producing the bird, especially for the Christmas table.
We're producing turkeys now for 25 years, thereabouts. There's a lot of work involved in them, all right, particularly with the NYD, what we're at. You don't need great sheds, but if you have, say, the likes of the normal farm sheds, that on most places you can keep a few. We started off with 200, and we've built up. We're doing 4,000 for this market now for Christmas. We start them off on maybe shavings or on shredded paper, and then we work onto the straw. And it's a fantastic year for nice dry straw, so it's one saving.
Do you notice that when you put in fresh bedding, they enjoy it?
They absolutely, yeah. They lie down in it. You'll see them there. Once they put a bit of fresh straw goes in, straight away they lie down on it.
It's a very busy period for farmers because the cycle of getting ready and the birds to market is basically within 10 to 12 days. There will be about 300 or so farmers scattered all over the country that will be supplying the fresh turkey that will come on the Christmas market. The numbers of farmers producing turkey basically has reduced over the last 3 or 4 years because the hygiene regulations governing the dressing of the birds has constraints at farm level. And so most of the farmers producing turkey for the Christmas trade now basically bring them to the butchers or the retail areas where they have the facilities to oven ready the birds.
Tell me something of how hectic it gets the Christmas week.
Bedlam, total bedlam, because you want all weights. They want to be very well plucked, very well finished. The butcher wants something that looks well, that will sell itself. And it wants to be nice and white, nice and plump.
Almost 4,000 turkeys will leave this farm in the next few days. The campaign to ensure that customers get the turkeys they order has begun in earnest.
You'll have people like looking for things a little bit bigger than a chicken, you know, and it's not going to look well, you know. And there's still a good demand for heavy hens, great demand for heavy hens. You get a hen now up to 30-pound weight and maybe over it.
Would you get an oven to fit her in?
You get her in all right. A lot of people cut the legs off and kick it in.
We have about 30 pluckers. We have to look after them, and the butchers and the phones and the deliveries, and whatever goes wrong then after that we look after, yes. Completely hectic, yeah.
Joe, you've been plucking turkeys for 20 years. You must have some tricks.
Not really, no, just keep at it until you get better.
How quick can you pluck a turkey?
About 67 minutes, I suppose.
Usually you're talking about 16-hour days every day for 10 days up until Christmas Eve.
Plucking turkey?
Well, plucking, delivering, getting turkeys to the butchers and everything, yeah.
I'd rather be in school sometimes, you know, when the work starts getting a bit messy, but I suppose I have to do it.
Is it hard work?
It's very hard work, actually. You wouldn't believe the amount of work that has to go into it all year long. Like, even when we don't have them, there's a lot of work to be done.
Basically, you've got two choices when it comes to the Christmas dinner. You can do it the traditional way and cook it yourself, or you can get someone who knows what they're talking about to do it for you.
Well, if we're going for traditional roast stuffed turkey, I think it's an excellent idea to have your butcher to take off both of the legs. Ask your butcher to bone them out, to roll them and stuff them. They can be cooked on another day. Now, when you get the turkey home into your own kitchen, it is imperative that you be scrupulously careful about washing out the body cavity. You have to wash this very carefully. Make sure you dry it with paper or with cloth or whatever you decide, and then some freshly ground black pepper in there. Then you also be very careful to wash in here, in the front, or the craw as we call it, because this is where the stuffing is going to go, whether you use a bread stuffing, a potato stuffing, or a forcemeat stuffing.
What's your favourite?
I go for a bread stuffing with apple, celery and onion.
Okay.
And just maybe a little bit of finely chopped peach in it as well.
What about in here?
In here now, it is, can I say again, you do not stuff the body cavity, but however, you do need to break down the heat that's going to go from breast to breast. So you do that by using half a lemon, half an orange, half an apple, and half an onion. You don't have to peel them, you simply wash them, cut them in half, and you put them loosely in here to the body cavity, again with some herbs or freshly ground black pepper. Then you put the turkey sitting on a trivet, as we have here, to make sure that the turkey doesn't make direct contact with the roasting tin.
Little bit of butter, maybe?
A little bit of melted butter, and again some freshly ground black pepper, some herb de Provence or freshly chopped herbs of your own choice.
And that's ready for the oven?
Into the oven, 325 degrees, for 20 minutes to the pound and 20 minutes over. Your turkey is ready to eat.
So what now, Frank?
Okay, here we have our traditional roast Christmas turkey already sitting ready to carve. But before you do carve it, it is imperative to allow it to stand for at least 20 minutes out of the heat. This allows the meat to reconstitute. And if you do allow it to stand sufficiently long enough, the stuffing that's actually here in the breast, as you carve it, you can also slice a piece of the stuffing with it, which really looks very, very well. Here we did cook the turkey legs, and this is how the turkey leg is going to look, and that's going to be very lovely. And we'll serve all of this with some roast potatoes, some glazed carrots, and some sautéed Brussels sprouts.
And nice gravy.
Now, the gravy, here's our fresh gravy. We made that while the turkey was standing after coming out of the oven, made from the juices of the roasting tin. And here we have some homemade cranberry sauce.
It looks delicious, Frank. What time are you at my house on Christmas Day?
Will 3 o'clock be all right?
Live with that.
Well, therefore, I will be coming home. Yeah, when the foghorn blows, I want to hear it. I don't have to fear that I want to rock your gypsy soul, just like way back in the days of old.
For thousands of Irish people, Christmas is a time of homecoming and family reunion, a time to catch up on old acquaintances and visit the family homestead. But for some, being back home isn't quite what it should be.
I was born and reared here, and my father was also, and his father was born here too. So there is sentimental value here to me. And I presently now live in New Jersey. I work in New York. I've been over there for approximately 10 years. And I was hoping, that I would be able to return home here to take over the family farm. And with the hope that if a little bit of land or something did come up in the area, that as a result of being over there and being in a position to buy it, that I would get an adequate opportunity to buy it.
In 1994, Tom Weir and his father saw an opportunity to buy extra land to add to their 30-acre holding. 21 acres came up for sale, and the Weirs bought 5. The remaining 16 acres were bought by Quilcha and subsequently planted. The Weirs and a neighbour claimed that they would have bought these 16 acres, but were denied the opportunity to do so, a claim disputed by Quilcha.
We had placed bids on that land, both myself and my neighbour. And I guess the easiest way, without going into a big rigmarole, is we lost the land, and it was not as a result of the situation did not arise where we were bid out of the land.
We were interested in acquiring the land, and ourselves and the Weirs had some money on the land. So we're very sad when we heard it was gone to forestry, because our feeling here is once land has gone to forestry, there's no hope of the farmers getting it back again.
like everybody else, we buy land on the open market. We have no other way of buying it. And it's fully transparent, as in this particular case, where we bought this land, it was for sale with an auctioneer. Everybody knew it was for sale, and we bought it. We became aware of local interest in part of the land, and we excluded that area from the sale. That wasn't the normal procedure for us to do. But to keep good relations, we did that.
The farms in this area are typical of many small holdings in the west of Ireland, and with the marginal nature of the land, extra acreage is vital if a farm is to be made viable.
Land in areas like this, where the holdings of land consist roughly between 20 and 40 acres, I'm not exactly sure what the area is, but it's in that region, right? There is a lot of pressure in land where people that want to avail of their retirement because of additionality applying to the young farmer taking over, where people want to go into reps where there's a maximum pay, you get a maximum payment on 100 acres, or where you have people availing of the suckler cow premium, which will be in this area, sheep, special beef premium, or whatever, in the area aid. It's all acreage related. And if somebody comes in to an area like this, buys land that's not going to be available to farmers in that particular area, that means that every acre of land or hectare of land that's taken out of that area is reduced income for that specific area. We brought out our land policy document early in the year, and we have requested in that where the land usage that has changed hands is going to be changed from agriculture, from what it has been originally at, to something, we'll say, like forestry, that there should be at least a 2 months notice period, so that if there is need, and the government should have an involvement in this, the Department of Agriculture, if there is need for that land in that rural area for people to be viable, then there should be some mechanism where they can acquire that land.
Interest in forestry is on the increase, with massive grants available to plant trees. Last year, 48,000 acres were planted, almost half of which was carried out by farmers, and the government's objective is to double the area under forestry in the next 20 years.
I mean, we are a significant player in the land market. We purchase about 5,000 hectares a year, but we're only one of the players in there. There are other forestry companies, for example, buying land, and of course most of the land that goes on the market is in fact bought by farmers themselves for one reason or another. We seek land that's basically very unsuitable for agriculture. Grass, rushy land. The estimates by Chagas and the Department of Agriculture have shown that there's about 2.5 million acres of this land out there. And generally speaking, despite our strong presence in the market, and we do have between about 600 transactions, separate transactions a year, the number of transactions where problems occur with local landowners are, you could count upon one hand. And where they do occur, we go out of our way to accommodate people's needs. But naturally, where we have a strong presence and a big presence in the market, local conflicts can arise from time to time. There has been some criticism about the fact that the current forestry payments are grant-driven. Sure, they are grant-driven, but the grants are market-driven. There's a very strong demand for timber worldwide, in Europe in particular, and particularly in the UK. And a huge potential in relation to growing timber commercially has been identified and is now recognised at EU level, at the Department of Agriculture level, and in Chagas. And here we have the EU providing the country with a wonderful opportunity now to restore its forest cover, almost cost-free. And as I said earlier, it's great that farmers, most farmers, have indeed recognised that and are now planting about 11,000 to 12,000 hectares a year, which is very good for the country.
As Cuilcha and other companies buy more and more land for forestry, the number of disputes between the foresters and adjoining farmers is very likely to increase. Perhaps there is need for an independent body to adjudicate on such conflicts, so that local communities see forestry as a positive development rather than a threat to their area and to their future as farmers.
Well, as you can see, the land is marginal, and marginal not is the best we've got, and it's the best I suppose we're likely to have anyhow. We can make what we can of it. So it may not look much to Cuilcha or to people from the Midlands or whatever, but to us it's our home, it's our land, it's how we have to farm. We have no other choice, and we stick with it.
They've planted that much forestry, there is no land, especially around, you know, around here, and we're in Elamore, the next townland, and there is no land, it's all forestry.
Every piece of land that's for sale in this area, as you can see out in front of us here, it's all bought up by the forestry before people even get a chance to bid for it.
Like, this is all people has around here. It's not much like, but it's all people has. You know, the sheep farmers around here, like, they're being taken over.
I'd say people will fight to the very bitter end anyhow, really. I'd imagine they would, yeah. They don't want, the roots are here, like, you know, people want to wait where they were born and reared and their ancestors and whatnot.
Well, what we've tried to do is, at local level, to instruct the Kielce managers to be flexible and sensitive where an adjacent parcel of land comes up, and maybe that farmer would have no other opportunity to expand. Not to pay too high a price, to look at swaps, exchanges, or other possibilities, because Kielce can buy land anywhere, whereas some of these farmers can't. And in some areas that's worked well with farm organisations and with individuals. But you must remember, there is a major legal constraint in terms of the rights of a seller of land to get the highest price and to get their rights vindicated in terms of the sale of any land. In some areas, forestry is seen as depopulating. I don't accept that fully, because the additional benefits from masonite, from sawmilling, in the next few years we expect an extra 3,000 jobs in this sector.
If the present minister was to step into it and bring about legislation where the people in these local communities would be protected, because as of now they don't have anybody to go to lodge a legitimate complaint to. I have the option to stay over in America. That would hurt me, but I have that option. But the people in this community here and in other communities are going to be faced with the same fate that I was 10 years ago. They're going to have to leave.
Well, I'm still here in the crib outside the Mansion House. All of the money collected goes to the Lord Mayor's funds for Dublin's needy. So if you're in town, do try and drop in. That's all for this week. From all of us on the programme, I hope you have a very happy and a peaceful Christmas. We're back on January the 8th, so until then, bye-bye.